Pushing Back the Shadows, support and awareness for mental health. Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the Pushing Back the Shadows podcast. My name's Alex Davis. I'm the founder of Pushing Back the Shadows, main author behind the blog, and also do the YouTube videos. Now, it's been a little while since I last spoke to you guys, and I'm sorry for that. I've been moving house recently, and it's one of those things, you know how it goes. You're trying to change your address, change your all your bills and everything over, and get your services all connected up. And it's taken a little while for me to get the internet going. It's one of those things where you're trying to use your mobile data as a hotspot as best you can, but you know, as expected, it was one of those things where that kind of ran out very, very quickly. And I find it ironic because the company that I'm with, they offer like a rollover service. If you haven't used all of your data in a particular month, then the excess goes into like a piggy bank, and if you need it, you can then roll it back out to top up your data that way. However, if you forget your password, like the genius on the other end of the microphone here, the options are to send you an email or to answer a secret question. And when you can't remember the date that you put in for your secret question, your only option then becomes your email, which kind of leaves you in a bit of a catch-22 because you've got no data. So how do you receive an email? You see where I'm going with that. So yeah, it's been an interesting week, interesting couple of weeks actually. But we've made it. We're into the new house. Cheryl and I are very excited. And yeah, so far so good. It's starting to look like a home. Which is quite funny really when the one thing we said as we put up some pictures was, golly, it looks like a home. And all we've done is knock a few pictures into a wall. But hey, I digress. So let's get back to the normal routine where we're having the YouTube videos, the blog posts, and of course the podcast. And so today I wanted to talk about a subject that's quite important to me. It's one of those that really I don't think gets quite enough credit. And quite enough coverage in today's world. So I wanted to take you on a little bit of a... No, do you know what? I'm not going to say a little bit of a journey, but just on a little walk with me, where we find out a little more about approval. Because it's one of those things that I think is talked about enough that there's that social... opinion and that general kind of attitude towards it, but at the same time it's very, very hard to achieve, and if you don't achieve it, then that can be really difficult. So let's take a look. Let's have a look at approval. Anorexia, bulimia, body dysmorphia. Eating disorders are not commonplace in general conversations, but they should be. Like any other aspect of mental health, these are important topics that we need to be talking about. So why not join us, Pushing Back the Shadows, from the 4th to the 10th of June, where we're going to be hosting an Eating Disorder Awareness Week. In collaboration with Hope Virgo, one of the UK's authors on eating disorders, and Elle Rose, an American YouTuber who does a lot about bulimia and other eating disorders as well as many more collaborators, while we explore the different eating disorders, how people live with them, and how you can help those who go through them. From the 4th to the 10th of June, more information is on the website. All you have to do is go to pushingbacktheshadows.com /eating disorder awareness. Okay, so it's very commonplace for us in society to feel that we need to be liked. Have you ever felt that pressure, whether it's in high school, whether it's in your workplace? You get that pressure to be liked. You know, you hear talk about all the popular kids, you hear about, the ones who are like the manager's favourites, and everything seems to go right for them, doesn't it? You know, especially in like the workplace, the more popular ones tend to get the promotions or tend to get the slightly cushier work assignments. Now, I know that given that people promote like this equality in the workplace and so on, that's not necessarily always the case nowadays. But it certainly is in some workplaces. I mean, I've been in a couple where that was the case. You know, if you got in right with the managers, then you were on the fast track. If you rubbed any of the managers up even slightly the wrong way, then it was difficult, and heaven help you if you got something wrong, because then that just made your life a living hell. But it's that pressure that really drives us to think, well, do you know what, I need to be good at this, I need to be doing that, I need people to like me, because, then things are going to go better for me. And we tend to see these people, like the popular kid in school, who just seems to have all these friends, and it's really, really great to have those friends, because then we're happy, and our life is going well, and we're not, little Billy No Mate shoved off in the corner, and I apologise for the expression if your name is Billy, but shoved into the corner with nobody to really talk to. And that can be a very difficult thing to deal with. And really, as a people, we're not taught how to deal with that. How to deal with approval or disapproval. Because sometimes the case will be that people will be disapproving of what we do, what we say, who we are. So, how do we cope with that? How do we deal with that? Because realistically, we can't all be the popular kid, can we? I mean, we can't. We just can't be the popular one. It'll sound ridiculous, but it's almost like if everybody was the popular one, then nobody would be, would they? Because we'd all be equal. It's a similar concept to the whole divide of rich and poor. If everybody was rich, then we wouldn't really be rich. We'd all have exactly the same stuff. So, it's a difficult one to deal with, particularly when it comes down to mental health issues, because depression, anxiety, and other sorts of things like that, they have a tendency to make it worse than it actually is. Do you find that? I've talked before about the grass is greener syndrome, where you're looking at what everybody's putting on Facebook, and it's like, oh, their lives are so much better than me, than mine, and it's no good, and we can't do X, Y, Z, when really that's not the case. It's difficult to deal with because we have a tendency to kind of skew things a little bit and think, well, actually, do you know what, it's their lives are so much better than mine. So how do we deal with approval? And actually, where has this come from? So, what I want to do before I tell you a little bit about how I would say we deal with approval and disapproval, is I want to just take a step back and actually tell you where this thought has come from, and tell you a little bit more about my experiences of it. Because I always find, and I don't know whether you agree with this, I find that usually a little bit of context can help. Putting it into somebody else's real life experiences can help us to identify with it better. So let's take a look. You're listening to Pushing Back the Shadows. Our little story starts then, as a lot of mine seem to, on Twitter. And so those of you who followed some of the work that we do, you'll know that we're branching out into public speaking as well, and have been doing a few different things about the public speaking side, and like going into, we went into a college in Birmingham, for example, to speak about mental health, and I had a question about that. And so what I'd done, I'd posted a tweet on, on Twitter, to ask for a couple of people who'd already done public speaking, to ask them for a little bit of information, because really it's given that it was something new to me, it was something that I didn't really know what to. Well, I didn't have an answer to my question, so I go on Twitter. I ask this question, and I just put a little detail in the side saying, look, if you guys have an answer for me, could you send me a direct message? Because that way, you know, I'll be able to you know what I'm trying to say. I can't think of the right word. It's one of those days when my brain just doesn't quite have the right sentences. Yeah, DM me, because then I can ask the questions and get the more information without actually having to make it all public, because that's one of the things that I don't really want to do. I want you guys to see the results. I don't necessarily want you to see all the questions and answers and all that comes with setting up another branch to a business. And so I've been talking to a couple of people, and one of them had kind of almost taken offence to the question. I mean, to give you an example, it was, I don't know, something as daft as you're going to do a service for somebody. Say you're going to lead worship at a different church, you know, kind of do guest leading worship, which is something that I do. And you say, well, actually, do you know what? There's petrol costs to get me there, etc., etc. So would I charge for it? And some people might say, well, yeah, actually, no. They if they want you to come to them, they should really reimburse you. Others would say, well, no, it's a religious service. You shouldn't charge. No, that's ridiculous. So it was that kind of thing. This person had taken offence to the question that I was asking, and so I kind of said, well, do you know what? We're going to have to agree to disagree, because realistically, the answers that you're giving me, while they are valid for certain situations, aren't valid for mine. So we'll agree to disagree. And next thing I knew, I'd been unfollowed. And it was only a couple of weeks later that I was going on to over onto Amazon, where I sell my book, Pills and Blades. And I happened to see that this particular person had gone and left a rather snarky review. You know, oh, Alex came to me for help, and you know, and I said that it shouldn't be this and it shouldn't be that, and you know, he gets royalties from his book anyway, so that should be enough, and that should be enough publicity for him, and etc., etc. It was one of those where it was, you know, just basically slating what I was doing. And in that moment, it was like, great. What's the point? If this is what comes back when I'm trying to do something different, what's the point? But then, after a little bit of a think, it was like, well, do you know what? It shouldn't be that way. I'm trying to go out and raise awareness through speaking. It's a good thing to be doing. Yeah, okay, I have questions. And yeah, okay, I'm fairly new to what I'm doing. But it's okay for people not to approve of the way I'm necessarily going about it. It's okay for them to have then gone on to Amazon, found my book, and then left a rather snarky review. And that's the thing. They did that, and they had no reason to, because the question wasn't even relating to the book. But it's okay. And it is. But why? Why is that okay? Why is it okay for me, as a mental health blogger, author, speaker, YouTuber, etc., 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 to be faced with disapproval? And how can I deal with that disapproval. Because do you know what? The approval's great. If you guys like what I'm doing, it gives me more motivation to keep doing it. It gives me that little bit of a boost to think, yeah, do you know what? I'm doing the right thing, I'm making a difference, and I can keep going with this. Because people like it. So the approval, in that sense, is really okay to deal with. But the disapproval is the tricky part. So how did I go from being actually quite angry about this to, do you know what? It's alright. It happens, it's fine. I'll tell you. Pills and Blades takes you on Alex's journey with depression, anxiety and insomnia, giving you access to his darkest moments, his deepest struggles and his all-time lows. Fraught with pain, emptiness and trials, he gives his honest account of how mental health has affected him, how it cost him his job, but how there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Find out how he set up Pushing Back the Shadows, why he fights for mental health awareness, and how he brings awareness and support to a world of mental health and those supporting the people who are struggling. Get your copy today through pushingbacktheshadows.com/books. Available on Amazon in paperback and on Kindle. How do we then go from wanting all that approval to accepting disapproval? Because really it's a very difficult step, almost a leap if you like, to make. It's one of those things that if we can avoid disapproval, we'll do it. I mean, personally, I think that a lot of us, no matter, how much we might say that we're not, a lot of us are, to a certain extent, people pleasers. We'll try and make everybody happy with whatever we do, whether that's, as I said before, at work, at school, the decisions we're making, the things we're saying. To a certain extent, we try and please everybody. And I know it's something that I've been guilty of before. I'll do kind of anything for anyone except for myself. And it's one of those things that can get us into quite a lot of trouble, particularly when it starts putting strains on our own health, be it our mental health or our physical health. And it's something that a lot of us aren't necessarily very good at, saying no. Despite a lot of, a lot of experts, so to speak, saying that, the millennial generation is kind of quite selfish, we still aren't very good at saying no, are we? We'll try and please people. But the important thing to note there is that no matter what we do, no matter how good it is, how thought through, how awesome whatever it is we're trying to do is, not everybody is going to be pleased. And that applies to kind of, everything. Everything in this world, that applies to. Politics, when Donald Trump was elected, a lot of people were happy, a lot of people weren't. When the UK decided that they were going to join in with the airstrikes, a lot of people were happy, a lot of people weren't. In other things, like in some of the medical decisions that are made, like these life and death ones, some people are happy, some people aren't. Abortions and euthanasia, people are happy, people aren't. And even down at more of a smaller scale, like in the schools, in the workplaces, even the smallest of decisions there, some people are happy, some people are not. There is no decision and no act anywhere that is going to please everybody. Even think of it in the scales of like poverty. Redistributing the wealth. Yeah, there's going to be loads of change, and loads of people are going to be happier. But there are still going to be those who aren't so happy, because they're getting less. whatever situation we apply it to, there is guaranteed to be at least one person who is not completely happy. So disapproval, if you like, is going to be there anyway. Just the same way that you can't have light without darkness, or day without the night, you can't have approval without disapproval. It's one of these fundamental laws of physics, the universe and science and all that mumbo-jumbo that I don't really get, but you know. No, it's a lie. I get it to a certain extent, but it's one of those things where you have to have one to have the other. Because in some ways, if you take the disapproval out, you're not going to notice the approval. Vice versa, if you take approval away, you're not going to notice disapproval. So, no matter what you do, what you say, how well thought through it is, somebody is going to disapprove somewhere. And that's something that I've come across quite a few times. I used to lead a band at my old church. I used to be part of like the student council, stuff like these. And there would be people who were unhappy with the decisions that had been made. So one thing that I tend to live by now is, and I think this is a very important point to make, if what you're doing is important, do it. Yes, take into account what people will think. Take into account what they say. You know, the feedback you get, or the potential potholes, pitfalls, whatever. Take those into account and factor them in. Plan accordingly. But if it's worth doing, then do it. See, after that review that was left, and after the response that I had from that particular person, it would have been far too easy to just say, yeah, do you know what? To hell with it. I'm not gonna bother with public speaking. If this is the response that people get, why should I bother? But actually, there are people who have benefited from the work that I do. People who've actually come back and said, do you know what, it's been amazing having you come and speak. We'd love for you to come again. So why should I let one person stand in the way of that? And even if it's kind of, 100 or 1,000 people, why should I let people stand in the way? Another example of this would be the Understanding Self-Harm page. A lot of people have kind of criticised it as, being trigger warning, and it can be quite difficult to read. Personally, I think, if it's a page entitled Understanding Self-Harm, then it's going to be about self-harm. You should know what you're getting into. But I wrote a post about a tweet, a trigger, a minefield, because something I'd done regarding that, an image that I'd used, had kind of sparked a really big backlash, because a lot of people said, "Oh, you shouldn't use an image like that." I mean, it was healed self-harm scars. I'll be honest, I don't understand the problem, and as a self-harmer, I think I've got a decent understanding of it. But it was one of those things. It's like, okay, well, we can look to see how we can make it better, but realistically, how are we meant to avoid that particular topic? And even though there was quite a big backlash, I kind of took the stance of, do you know what, it's important, it's a very important topic to talk about. So why should I shy away from it because I'm getting criticised for it? Likewise, when you get some of the debates about like medication versus therapy, or even some of the more political things, or like those things with talking about suicide and stuff, why should we shy away from those topics because people are going to disapprove? They're important topics to talk about. Important things to really get involved in and give your opinion. Yeah, granted, people aren't going to like it. But we're looking for change, aren't we? And change never happens based on what people like. Because change is uncomfortable. By its very nature, it's disconcerting, it's uncomfortable, and people don't like it. We're never going to get that 100% approval. And that in itself is what is really worth fighting for. Getting that little bit of approval, like the diamond in the rough. Getting that little bit of touching somebody else's life in a meaningful and positive way. It's a bit like how I talked about trudging through the sludge. Sometimes we've got to go through that rubbish to get the few bright spots. So if your cause, or your thought, or your opinion, if it's important, and I'm not just talking about important to you, because if you're anything like me, you'll think that your opinion's not that important. But if it's important, speak up. Don't worry about what they're going to say, because that doesn't matter. If you're doing the right thing, that is what counts. Now, I'll just leave you with a little thought that I had, which in a nutshell was when there were people giving that kind of backlash. My response was to go more down the route of, do you know what, I'm a writer, and I write to get a reaction. And okay, sometimes I'll write to get a good reaction, sometimes I'll write to get a bad reaction, but whether you're giving me your stamp of approval or whether you're criticising what I've said, if you've reacted in any way, then I've done my job. Granted, some reactions are better than others, and I'm not going to dispute that. But if you've reacted, then I, Alex Davis, the author, the writer, the blogger, have done my job. Approval, disapproval, as long as I believe in what I'm saying, and as long as there is truth to what I'm saying, that is what matters. You take care, guys, and I'll catch you next week, because these will be coming back to that weekly schedule now that we're settling in nice to this new home. Thank you for those of you who have given us well wishes, because it's been really encouraging to hear that you guys have missed us while we've been away. But yeah, as I say, you take care. I'll catch you next week for episode 37. Take care. You've been listening to Pushing Back the Shadows. To find out more, head over to pushingbacktheshadows.com and hit subscribe to get all of our latest updates straight to your inbox. Alternatively, connect with us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/AlexDavisPBTS, or you can visit us on Twitter at AlexDavisPBTS. Enable Pushing Back the Shadows to continue supporting people in the mental health community, their friends and their family. By pledging just $1 a month, you could help us to continue supporting people with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar and other mental illnesses. You can also unlock exclusive rewards, behind the scenes, sneak previews of upcoming posts and much, much more. So head over to www.patreon.com/AlexDavisPBTS to find out more.